Oh, it's loud. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? Oh, good morning. Hi. I'm back. I am back and better than ever. What the hell is going on over here? Something is happening. Hold on. I'm having some weird glitch thing happening. Hold on, give me a second. Can't be sick. Don't look behind the curtain. Avert your eyes. Avert your eyes, lovely peoples. Alright. Okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, okay, good enough. Hi, everybody! How are you guys doing today? Cal, you're first. You're always first. Cal's always first. Why is that a surprise? Paper! How are you doing today? How are you doing today, friend? I hope you are doing well. I hope you are doing well. So good to see you. So good to see you. I was gonna say something. I completely forgot what I was gonna say. Right, today's story time. We're gonna do story time. For those of you who missed out, last week we started the novelization of the most popular 80s movies, at least in my opinion, The Labyrinth. Not The Labyrinth, Labyrinth. You know, the one with Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie and all that stuff. Yeah. So, we started the novelization reading last week. You know, we got to meet Sarah. Her issues, the Jareth, the Goblin King, he has issues. And, you know, we started Sarah's journey through the labyrinth. She has 13 hours to save her baby brother from being turned to a goblin. And so far, she's having a very exciting time. I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. I woke up early. I ended up playing some Monster Prom off stream with Cal for a little while, which was fun. Frustrating though, because we kept getting disconnected. But it was a lot of fun. So I got to exercise my voice acting muscles a little bit. I'm trying to get more into voice acting. So for games like that, where you can read the character dialogue and stuff. It was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Hopefully, Cal and I will be able to play it again this Friday on stream. We're planning on making it a whole series, but playing it off because the game itself is so huge. There are so many endings, so many possibilities of doing things. Playing it off stream isn't really that big a deal, but because there's still so much content. But because I want to make it a series, I also want to be able to play it on stream too. So, you know. It's one of those things. Well, you know, we figure it out. We figure it out as we go along. But yeah, so today we're going to continue reading the novelization of Labyrinth. Last time we left off, Sarah had fallen into the oubliette. It's a very, 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 very popular scene in the movie. She fell into the oubliette and her lovely little friend Hoggle came, you know, may or may not have his own reasons to save her. So now they are in the oubliette and trying to escape. What is an oubliette? It's like an underground maze-like cavern that usually holds prisoners. It's meant to be kind of a place where you put prisoners and stuff, and they can't really escape without knowing the way. So it's kind of like that's what it is. It's an oubliette. So we're gonna continue from last time. So yes, I hope. How do you guys like the new background music for the story time? How do you like it? Do you guys like it? Do you think it's fitting? Do you think it's perfect for the story time? I hope so. I hope you guys like it. I love it. I love all the new music I was able to get for all my scenes. So I hope you all like it. Alright, into the story. You guys are ready? You got your tea, your cookies, your blankets, your comfy pillows. You guys are all ready to go? Okay. It's classy? I'm glad. I try to class up this whole stream while I was on my hiatus. I try to change up some stuff to make it a little bit more fun and friendly and a little bit more, I don't know, professional? Can you call what I do professionalism? I don't know. I try to make it a little bit more clean though, so I hope you guys like it. Alright, on to the story. Chapter 6. Up and Up. Sarah gasped. The whizzing blades were rapidly drawing nearer. Hoggle was pawing pathetically at the great door and mumbling to himself. But Sarah wasn't listening to him. She was looking around for an escape. Above, below. She dashed along the sidewalls, looking for a handle or a button. There has to be some way out. That was how the labyrinth worked. There was always some trick, if only she could find it. The clanking, whirring, seething, rushing noise was louder. She glanced momentarily at what Hoggle was doing. He was still just scrabbling at the door. There was no use trusting to him. What could she do? And what? Her eye fell on a part of the wall, one side of the door, that looked distinct from the rest. A panel of metal plates. She pushed at it and felt it give a little. "Hoggle!" she shouted above the echoing din. "Sarah!" he answered, hammering his pudgy fist against the door and kicking it, as though it could be expected to relent in the face of such frustration. "Don't leave me!" "Get over here and help me!" she yelled back at him. Hoggle joined her. Together they shoved with all their weight at the metal plates. "Come on," Sarah told him. "Push, you little double-crosser, push!" Hoggle was pushing. "I can explain," he panted. "Push!" The panel caved in suddenly. They fell through the space it left and sprawled flat onto it. "Hi, Jack. Good morning. I'm so glad that you made it for story time. I hope you enjoy, my friend. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you can enjoy the story." Behind them, the machine slashed through the air, just beside their feet. When we reached the great barred door, there was a terrible crunching sound as the knives and cleavers bit through the wood, spitting it out as splinters, which the whirring brushes swept up neatly. The machine was cranking along by 4 goblins, standing on a platform behind the wall of knives. They were grunting and sweating with the effort of turning handles and working levers to keep the contraption whirring. The racket clattered onwards, through the demolished doorway and off into some distance. One moment, I'm sorry. One moment, I'm so sorry. I got an important message I gotta look at. Yes, I will go to my doctor's appointment, thank you. I got a doctor's appointment tomorrow. What happened to all my snacks today? I decided to be a little classy. A little classy. Got me a bit of wine. Got me a nice comfy chair. Although I can always switch it out if you guys missed the snacks. If you guys missed the snacks, I'll definitely change it out. Hold on. Boink. Hold on. One moment. Oh, wrong button. Boink. There we go. That's better. Snack time! Hi, Sarah. Hello. Thank you for being here. Let me get snacks. So if you guys missed the snacks, I have the snacks right here. Feel free to have some pudding! I will have more snacks in the future. I might end up changing some of my assets to have more snacks. So feel free to have some pudding and some tea while you're here. Let's see. Where was I? Sarah laid on her back, recovering her breath. Hoggle looked down at her. "He's throwing everything at us," he said, and shook his head with a trace of admiration. "The cleaners, the eternal stench, the whole works. He must think a lot of you." Sarah answered with a faint, forced smile. "He's got some funny ideas." Hoggle was busy again, eyes darting left and right beneath his bushy eyebrows. He clumped around in his shadow until he found what he was looking for. "This is what we need," he called. "Follow me." She sat up and looked. There on the floor of the tunnel they had entered, she saw the base of a ladder. It led up into darkness. "Come on," Hoggle was calling. The first rung was too high for him to reach, and he was hopping around trying to jump on it. Sarah went over to him. The ladder looked unsafe to her. It was constructed out of an odd assortment of bits of wood, planks, and branches, parched together with ends of rope and half-driven nails. "Come on, give me a hand," Hoggle urged. She stood with one hand holding the ladder. "How can I trust you?" she asked. "Now that I know you were taking me back to the start of the labyrinth." "I wasn't," Hoggle protested, and stared fiercely at her with those piggy eyes of his. As a liar, he was so bad at it was quite touching. "I told him I was taking you to the start of the labyrinth, to throw him off the scent, you see." "But actually..." "Hoggle," Sarah smiled reproachfully at him. "How can I believe anything you say?" "Well," he replied, screwing up one eye, "let me put it this way. What choice do you have? Sarah thought about it. There is that. And now, Hoggle said, the main thing is to get back up. He started again to try to hop to the first rung of the rickety ladder. Sarah gave him a leg up, watched him start, and followed. At any moment, she thought the thing might collapse. But then, as Hoggle said, what choice did she have? Without turning his head, Hoggle called out, "The other main thing is not to look down." "Right," she called back, and, as though it were a playground dare, she had to snatch a little look past her feet. "Oh!" she cried out. They had climbed much higher than she would have thought possible in the time. The wobbly ladder seemed to stretch down below her forever. She could not see the bottom of it, nor could she see the top. She felt unable to climb another rung. Clutching the sides of the ladder, she started to shake. The whole ladder shook with her. Above, Hoggle clung desperately to the shaking ladder. "I said don't look down," he moaned. "Or perhaps don't means do where you come from." "I'm sorry, I didn't realize." "Well, when you've done all the shaking you want, perhaps we could continue." "I can't help it," Sarah wailed. Jumping around like a monkey on a stick, Hoggle managed to answer. "Well, we'll just have to stay here till one of us falls off, or we turn into worm food." "I am sorry," Sarah told him, still shaking. "Oh, good, she's sorry. In that case, I don't mind being shaken off to my certain death." Breathing deeply and looking resolutely upwards, Sarah forced herself to think of happy, secure things. Merlin in her room, lovely evenings out with her mother, multiplication tables. It worked. She gained control of her body and started to climb again. Hoggle felt her coming and went on too. "See," he called to her, "you've got to understand my position. I'm a coward, and Jareth scares me." "What kind of position is that?" "A very humble one. That's my point. And you wouldn't be so brave either if you ever smelled the bog of eternal stench. It's his turn to pause on the ladder and control his shakes. "What is it?" "It makes me feel dizzy just thinking of it." "Is that all it does?" Sarah asks. "Smells?" "Believe me, that's enough." "Oh dear me. You just wait, if you get that far." "Can't you just hold your nose?" "No," Hoggle shouted again, but started to climb. "Not with this smell. It gets into your ears, up your mouth, anywhere it can get." Sarah thought she could see the top at last. There were chinks of daylight above her head. "But the worst thing," Hoggle continued, "is that if you so much as get a splash of the mire on your skin, you will never be able to wash the stench off." He was on the top rung now. He reached up, fiddled with a sliding bolt, and pushed open a wooden hatchway. Outside was a clear blue day, and Sarah had never seen anything so beautiful. Chapter 7. The Meaning of Life. Sarah... Oh, let me have a sip of tea. I had to make a fresh cup of tea. Because the tea I had earlier was very cold. So I drank that, and I had to make a fresh cup. So it's piping hot still. Really tasty, though. Let's see. Sarah joined Hoggle at the top rung of the ladder, gratefully clutching the sides of the open hatchway. It felt like firm land after a voyage at sea. They were looking at a garden, where birds were singing. It was surrounded by well-trimmed hedges, box hedges, she thought, and indeed they ran so straight with neatly cut openings in them, and turned such precise right angles, and the lawn was so flat and tidy, that the garden was like a green box, with the blue sky for a lid. But that was not why they were called box hedges, was it? It was a rather formal garden, with carefully positioned stone monuments. On the stones were runic carvings and a few faces. More of those phony warnings, Sarah decided, preparing herself for gloomy predictions. The hatchway through which they had emerged was itself the top of a large ornament urn, set upon a marble table. What a ridiculous arrangement, Sarah reflected, as they clambered out of the urn and stepped down to the lawn. Nothing was what it seemed to be. It was like a language in which all the words were the same as your own. But what they meant something quite different from what you were used to. From now on, she would take nothing at its face value. She looked with suspicion at the urn, and then down at the grass. She stepped carefully. It could turn out to be the top of someone's head. Hoggle spread his hands. Here we are, then. You're on your own from here. What? This is as far as I goes. You said I didn't promise nothing, he shrugged callously. But you said you didn't need anyone to save you. You little cheat, Sarah was outraged. You nasty little cheat. I am not a cheat. I said I'd take you as far as I could go. Well, this is it. You're lying. You're a coward and a liar, and... He sniffed. Don't try to embarrass me. I have no pride. Pipsqueak. Don't say that. Hoggle tightened his fist. Nasty, double-crossing, little runty, cheating, no-good pipsqueak. I said, don't say that. His eyes beetled. She leaned towards him and whispered, Pipsqueak. Ah! Hoggle's body clenched. He bared his teeth, then opened them to scream. With his feet together, he jumped up in the air, thumping the ground as he landed. Then he lost his balance and rolled onto the grass, beating his fists in the air, kicking his stumpy legs. His voice alternated between a growl and a scream. It was you insisted on going on. I said I'd get you out, but oh, no, you're so clever. You know better, didn't you? Ugh, well, you're on your own, and good luck to you. And good riddance. He closed his eyes and rolled onto the grass again. Sarah watched him, her mouth open in amazement. She had never seen anyone so angry, not even Toby. Eventually, Hoggle subsided, and lay for a while, his eyes still closed, his body twitching occasionally. Sarah wondered if he needed some sort of help. She felt guilty. She had provoked all that with just one word, which was clearly more hurtful than sticks or stones. Hoggle opened his eyes. He did not look at her as he stood up, brushed himself down, and pretended he had enough dignity left to turn away with his head held high. Hoggle won't be coming back to save you this time, he informed her. Holy shit, is that Mage Knight Regan? Is that a familiar face I hadn't seen in a while? Where the hell have you been? It's so good to see you, friend. It's so good to see you. Hi! I've missed you. How are you doing, Regan? It's so good to see you. It's so good to see you. Oh my god, it's me. Yes, it is. It's you! It's totally you. I'm so happy to see you. So happy to see you. We're reading the novelization of the hit 1980s movie Labyrinth that starred David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly. But that's what we're reading. I'm doing real good. I mean, to catch a stream, but haven't been able to now. Oh, I've been on hiatus up until last week, so I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you made it. You haven't even seen it. I did a whole bunch of new changes to my stream, so. Watched Labyrinth for the first time last year. It was great. Yes, I'm reading the novelization of it. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It's so much fun. But I'm glad you made it. I hope you're enjoying the story, friend. I'm so happy. We gotta hang out later. We definitely gotta 100% hang out later. Yeah. Okay, let me continue. I got so excited. Let me continue. Okay. Let me take a sip of tea. We do. Yes, we do. So much fun. Hold on. Okay. Alright, Hoggle won't be coming back to save you this time, he informed her. Oh, yes he will, Sarah muttered under her breath. And before he could get away, she darted forward and snatched a chain of brooches and badges from his belt. She had to tug quite hard to get it off, and he staggered forward. Hey, he protested. Ha! She held his precious jewelry too high for him to reach. He danced around beneath the dangling chain, trying to jump up and grab it. It was no good. Give that back, he shrieked. No, you can't have it back. No, you can have it back when I get to the center of the labyrinth. But you heard Jareth, Hoggle whined. The center is farther than I can go. No, no. His whine had risen to a shrill whimper. Upside down in the bog of eternal stench, he said. His eyes closed and he shuddered. Now there's the castle, Sarah said, in a deliberate, matter-of-fact voice, one a parent one might use to a child after his tantrum. Over the hedges, she could see the castle's spires and turrets and towers gleaming in the sunlight, and she pointed to them. Which way should we try? I don't know, Hoggles had turned sullen. Liar. Give it back! Hoggle was trying to leap up and grab the chain again. Give it back! She ignored him. Let's try this way, she proposed, and walked smartly through one of the gaps in the hedges into a hedged alley. Hoggle followed her reluctantly, his chin on his chest. She led the way down the straight alley, and soon came out into another garden, very like the one they had just left. Indeed, it was so like the first garden that it was the same one, she realized. She went to the urn and lifted the lid to check. Yes, there was the ladder leading downwards. She frowned. Isn't this the place we just came from? Hoggle was paying no attention to anything but the string of baubles. He leaped up, but he could get no more than half an inch off the ground. Give it back, he bellowed. I'm sure it's the same place. Sarah stared at the hedges and decided to try another gap. Come on, she told Hoggle. Let's try it down here. He trotted miserably after her. Again the alleyway ran geometrically straight, at a right angle to the hedge bordering the garden, and again within a few strides, they emerged into a garden so very like. Sarah groaned. Oh no. They had come out through a gap directly facing the one they had just entered. Give me my things! Hoggle was trying on a tone of menace. It was easy to ignore. Come on, Sarah said, undaunted, and tried a different gap. The result was the same as before. They were facing the gap they had just entered. And excuse me, and Hoggle was watching nothing but his jewelry. Sarah scratched her head. I don't believe it, she muttered, and looked around the garden. Which one haven't we tried? Hoggle pointed at a gap. Well, let's try that one then. She plunged into the gap. This time Hoggle didn't follow her, but waited, arms folded, onto the lawn. It was only a moment before she reappeared. Ah, she groaned. It's impossible. She's so clever, isn't she? Hoggle sneered. Thinks she can do it all, and she's lost before she's even started. Sarah turned on him. There's no point in sounding so smug. If you don't help me, you won't get your stuff back. But Hoggle's face fell. I don't know which way to go, he admitted. Then you have to help me in some other way, won't you? Them is my rightful property, Hoggle complained. It's not fair. No, it isn't, Sarah conceded. She found herself smiling, and it took her a moment to realize why. Then she saw it, like a conundrum that would never fool her again. Hi, Wasabi! I'm so glad to see you. I see you were very much missed yesterday, my friend. You were very much missed yesterday. How are you doing? How are you doing? I'm glad you're here. Right. Then she saw it, like a conundrum that would never fool her again. Nothing was fair. If you expected fairness, you would be forever disappointed. She turned a broad grin upon Hoggle. That's the way it is. Wasabi is real. It was your birthday yesterday? You didn't tell me? Oh my gosh! I wish you told me. I wish you told me. I would have sung you happy birthday. I would have sung you happy birthday. Aww. Usually whenever it's a friend's birthday, I would make a cake and sing happy birthday, but I don't have a cake. So, I'll sing you happy birthday. Cal, I know for a fact it wasn't your birthday yesterday. It was not your birthday yesterday. If you would have told me. If you would have told me. When is your birthday? I don't remember, but I know it wasn't yesterday. I'm really bad at remembering like dates like that. Is your pet his birthday? Is your pet Lizzard's birthday? That's awesome. That's awesome. And you're too busy goofing? That's completely valid. That is completely valid. I hope you had a lovely and wonderful birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Wasabi. Happy birthday to you. Hey, happy birthday to Regan's pet lizard. Don't worry, I don't even know when Cal's birthday. But yes, happy birthday, happy belated birthday, Wasabi. Next time we gotta do something special. Probably end up doing a Discord stream later anyway. So we'll do something special. We'll do something special to commemorate your birthday. Yeah. Okay, let me get back to this. Let me get back to the story. Kyle doesn't have a birthday. He was conceived like Kyle XY. So he was made in the pod, just like me. Just like me. I was also made in the pod. I remember Kyle XY. I used to love that show when it was like when it came out forever ago. It was a weird show. I loved it. Oh my gosh. I think I know what I want to do for my next Discord stream. We're gonna do a binge watch of Kyle XY. I'll see if I can find it on the internet and pull it up and we'll watch it. Just binge watch, a marathon the whole thing on Discord. That'll be fun. Maybe one day. Alright, let me... I was born from a tumor extracted from Cal. Oh yeah! The cycle repeats, doesn't it? I watched it once, but I remember I didn't have a belly, but he did not have a belly button. Cause he's a very special boy. A pheterochromocytoma. I just completed the cycle and birthed my own. Are you gonna name it? Did you name it? Please tell me you named it. Mitosis week. Yes. Mitosis. Please tell me you named it. Anyway. I remember you showed it to me. It was so weird. It looked like a meatball. Like a really big meatball. It was so weird. It made me hungry for meatballs afterwards though. Like a meatball sub. So, you know. Now I want a meatball sub. Now I have to make a meatball sub. Thanks, Regan. Now I know what... At least now I know what I want for lunch later. Meatball sub. His name is Ridley. It shall mature in 3 to 4 business days. Nice! Very cool. I'm gonna post my tumor in the server as a prank. Censor it just in case it might be triggering for some people. Just, you know, put the spoilers on it just in case some people don't want to see it. Okay? Make sure to be considerate. Because some people might be grossed out by it. For me, it looks like a meatball, so... Meatball subs for lunch I'll have today. I shall do that thing. Anywho, let me get back to this. Yeah. Let me get back to the story. Ah! My tablet, my e-reader went this. Ah! My e-reader just reset everything. Oh no! Where was I? Okay. Okay, sorry. Oops. Yeah, I got me a Nook. I got me a Nook. It's the Barnes and Noble's e-readers. They're called Nooks. I don't know if everyone has a Barnes and Noble's where they are. Barnes and Noble's is a bookstore. I don't know if everyone has one, but very, very popular bookstore here in the States, and I love that bookstore. I love bookstores, but they have their own product called a Nook. It's just like a little e-reader. It's very small. It's about the size of my hand, so it's very small. Is it in a barn? No, it's called Barnes and Nobles, like the last name Barnes, not like an actual barn. You know, there's an E at the end of it, an ES. We have the book corner in Big W. Oh, yeah. But yes, so they have a product called the Nook. I quite like it because it's just an e-reader, you know. So it's like a special little tablet meant just for books. And I used to have another tablet, a regular tablet that could get on the internet and stuff. This one does not. It lets me connect to like the Barnes and Noble store, but it doesn't let me actually get on the internet, which is kind of lame. But you know what? I bought this for the sole purpose of reading books. So that's what I do. My main goal with this e-reader is to try to get digital replicas of all my books that I have in my actual physical library. Posted it in the food. That's gonna be so gross. Okay, that's apropos, but okay. Let me continue with the story. You guys enjoy the story. I'm gonna continue. Oh wait, also I wanted to, before I start, Regan, you gotta join me and Cal on stream this Friday. We've been playing Monster Prom and it's a lot of fun. You should join us on that. You gotta join us on that. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. I was playing with Cal earlier today and it was a lot of fun. Thoroughly 100% enjoy that game. It's a goofy little game. So you gotta join us on that sometime. I plan on making it a series because that game is so extensive from what I understand. So it's gonna be a series, so I hope you can join us sometime. Alright, okay, let me continue. I'm gonna start from the beginning of the page again because I forgot where it was. Let's see. Well, let's try that one then. She plunged into the gap. This time, Hoggle didn't follow her, but waited, arms folded onto the lawn. It was only a moment before she reappeared. Oh, she groaned. It's impossible. She's so clever, isn't she? Hoggle sneered. Thinks she can do it all, and she's lost before she's even started. Sarah turned on him. There's no point in sounding so smug. If you don't help me, you won't get your stuff back. But Hoggle's face fell. I don't know which way to go, he admitted. Then you'll have to help me in some other way, won't you? Them's is my rightful property, Hoggle complained. It's not fair. No, it isn't, Sarah conceded. She found herself smiling, and it took her a moment to realize why. Then she saw it, like a conundrum that would never fool her again. Nothing was fair. If you expected fairness, you would be forever disappointed. She turned a broad grin upon Hoggle. That's the way it is. At that moment, she spotted a curious robed figure strolling across the lawn, apparently deep in thought. Where had he come from? He was an old man with a long white mustache and white eyebrows. But the most striking thing about him was his hat, which was topped with the head of a bird, with a sharp beak and eyes that were darting glances everywhere. Excuse me, Sarah called, running across the lawn after the old man. With his slow stride, his furrowed brows, bent head, and hands clasped behind his back, he appeared very wise. Surely he could be... Bro, my Nook just said, nope, I'm going to sleep now. He appeared very wise. Surely he could be of more help to her than the runty pipsqueak that she had to rely upon until now. He was settling gravely down on a garden bench as she approached him. Please, she said, can you help me? The wise man didn't really register Sarah's appearance. It was true that he raised his face towards her, but only as one might gaze at a tree, a fly, or a cloud while lost in thought. Rather than her, he seemed to be seeing a far horizon beyond her, so far beyond that a few mortals had ever scanned it. The depth and range of his thinking was clearly vast, whatever the subject of his thoughts might be. He was probably pondering deeply upon some problem that Sarah had never even imagined. Was it mathematical, she wondered, like the square root of -2? Or philosophical, the meaning of meaning, perhaps? But no, those were things she had at least tried to imagine, when she had read about them. Those great eyes gazing right through her were more likely preoccupied with some question of physics, or biochemistry, or linguistics, or all of that at once and more. You gonna go to bed? Alright, sleep well, Regan. See you later. Let's hang out soon. But enjoy the story. And night. Please, she repeated timidly. The bird's head on the wise man's hat suddenly spoke. Go away! Can't you see he's thinking? The wise man slowly raised a finger and rolled his eyes up towards the bird and spoke. Shh, he said. Sarah closed her mouth apologetically. She stood aside and waited. And don't stare, the hat reprimanded her. You'll put him off. I'm sorry. The wise man's lips opened slowly, and his eyes turned upwards again to address the hat. Silence, he commanded. The hat looked wryly at Sarah. This is the thanks I get, it said disgustedly. Where was I? The wise man was asking. How should I know? The hat chirped. You're the big thinker. The wise man noticed Sarah. Ah, a young girl. Sarah returned a polite little smile. The wise man's gaze traveled downward and settled on Hoggle. And is this your brother? Oh no, Sarah answered. He's just a friend. Hoggle had been about to expostulate at being taken for Sarah's brother, but now he stopped and looked sideways at Sarah. It's the first time anyone had called him a friend. He frowned. The wise man took a long breath. And what can I do for you? He asked Sarah. Please, she said, feeling shy and a little confused to be conversing with an ancient sage about what must seem to him so trivial a matter. Can you tell me, that is, I must get to the castle, but I can't ever get out of this garden. Every time I try to leave, I find myself right back here again. I can see the castle over there, but can you tell me, please, how I can get out to it? How can I get to it? Ah. The wise man nodded slowly, closing his eyes. After a while, he says, So, you want to get to the castle? How's that for brain power? Demanded the bright-eyed hat. Quiet, the wise man commanded. Nuts, the hat replied. Sarah put her hand over her mouth to conceal a giggle. The wise man composed his hands together into his lap. So, young woman, he told her, pressing his lips in thought. Nodding, he explained. The way forward is sometimes the way back. His hat pulled a face. Will you listen to this crap? The wise man was glaring upward and clenching his fingers. He cleared his throat. And sometimes, he continued, gazing earnestly at Sarah again. The way backwards. It's the way forwards, the hat interrupted. Can you believe it? I ask you. Will you be quiet? The wise man ordered his hat, profoundly. He looked at Sarah. He looked again at Sarah. Quite often, young lady. It seems we're not getting anywhere, when in fact we are. Sarah looked despairingly around the garden. Well, I'm certainly not getting anywhere at the moment. Join the club, said the hat. Perhaps, the wise man said. Perhaps it only seems like that. All is not always what it... It appears that he was drifting off into a reverie, on the nature of good and evil, possibly, or four-dimensional calculus, and he only just made it back to the end of his sentence. It seems. The hat peered down over the wise man's forehead and looked perkily at Sarah and Hoggle. I think that's your lot, said the hat. The sum total of earthly wisdom strewn at your feet for the asking. Please leave a contribution in the box. Sarah noticed for the first time that the wise man had absentmindedly drawn a collection box with a slot from the folds of his robes, and was now sitting quite abstracted in contemplation, with the box on his knee. As she looked at it, he gave it a discreet little shake. What was she to do? She hesitated, and then had the idea of donating one of the badges from Hoggle's string, which she was still holding. He read her mind. "Don't you dare," Hoggle barked. "Them's mine." Sarah paused and then finally slid her mother's costume ring off her finger. Hoggle watched her drop it into the collection box. It looked green. He thought he was going to get that too. Thank you so kindly, the hat said, something like a fairground barker. "Now move along, please." As they walked away across the garden, Hoggle said, "You didn't have to give that away. He didn't tell you nothing." "Well," Sarah said reflectively, "he says something about the way forward being sometimes the way backwards. We haven't gotten anywhere so far trying to go out forward, so why don't we try walking out backwards? It might work." Hoggle's expression was skeptical, but he humored her by doing as she suggested. As they walked backwards through the gap in the hedge from which Sarah had last emerged, the garden remained in peaceful silence, decorated with birdsong. The hat was watching where they had gone. When they did not return, it chirped. "Oh, what do you know? They took your advice." The wise man said, having dozed off after so much mental travail. His hat cocked an eye down at him. "It's so stimulating being your hat." The wise man concurred. Chapter 8. A very loud voice. Once they had left the wise man, Sarah and Hoggle found out by walking forward they could move ahead. It made a nice change. Not, however, any more than a nice change, because the maze of hedges had turned them left and right and back again so often that it was impossible to make any progress towards the castle. Frequently, it could be seen, spires and turrets looming in the distance above the hedges, no matter how far and fast they walked. It remained in the distance. Sarah was still thinking about the wise man. "Hoggle," she asked, "how do you tell when someone's talking sense and when he's talking rubbish?" Hoggle shrugged impatiently. "How should I know? All I know is that we're going to get ourselves well and truly lost in this place. Let me go back." "Not on your life. You're sticking with me now until we get there," Sarah said, wondering how much time she had left. Hoggle said, rather non-committedly, she thought. Well, she still had his precious string of baubles. He wouldn't get them back until she found Toby, and she judged that nothing would induce him to abandon her while she still had his treasure. Alley turning, alley dead end, stone pillar, alley, ornamental shrub, turning, on it went, leading nowhere. Sarah wondered whether it was a closed system, no exit but its entrance. That urn. It was just the kind of puzzle that Jareth would set. To waste time. Excuse me. I'm gonna turn up the brightness. I didn't realize how dark my tablet was. It made it a little difficult to read. There we go. It was the kind of puzzle that Jareth was set to waste what time she had left. But if that were so, she shuddered. Would she have the courage to go back into the urn, and down that ladder, and start over in that awful subterranean passageway? Down, 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 down. She remembered the hands, and the oubliette, and that terrifying slashing machine, and Jareth in that beggar costume. She recalled the sentence that her mother had once read aloud to her from a book, as she liked to do when something caught her fancy. Mind what you say to a beggar, it might be God in disguise. When she saw her mother again, she would tell her, or it might just be the king of goblins. She shrugged. How could she be expected to have any respect for Jareth? He was dangerous and powerful, obviously. but he was too aware of it. A show-off, really, and mean. A total cheat. He had a certain style to him. She could concede that much. He was not unattractive. But how can you respect, still less admire, someone like him? The best word she could think of to describe him was a cad. Alley, turning, alley. On they trudged. Hedged in as they were, they couldn't see that they were not completely alone in the maze. The head and coils of a sea serpent rolled along above a hedge quite close to them. Though they had actually encountered the beast, they might have spotted 3 little pairs of goblin feet running along beneath it, and heard the grunts of goblins supporting the parts of the serpent. Several times they narrowly missed meeting a mounted goblin, with lance and flag, who had been sent up by Jareth to look for them and spent hours galloping at random. Hoggle was quiet for some time. Then he asked, "Why do you say that about me being your friend?" "Because you are," she told him candidly. "You may not be much of a friend, but you're the only one I've got in this place." Hoggle thought about it for a while. Then he said, "I ain't never been no one's friend before." An enormous, blood-curdling roar from somewhere nearby froze the 2 of them in their tracks. Hoggle spun around, pausing only to say, "Keep the stuff." He started to run back, away from the roar. Sarah ran after him and seized hold of his sleeve. "Wait a minute," she said angrily. "Are you my friend or not?" While Hoggle hesitated, another air-trembling roar made up his mind for him. No, I'm not. Hoggle ain't no one's friends. He looks after himself, like everyone does." He wriggled his sleeve free. "Hoggle is Hoggle's friend," she heard him yell as he dashed in the opposite direction from the roaring and vanished into the maze. "Hoggle!" Sarah called. "You coward!" She heard another frightful roar, but stayed where she was. The monster, whatever it was, did not seem to be getting any closer to her. "Well," she said, speaking aloud to reassure herself, "I'm not going to be afraid. Things are not always what they seem in this place. That's what the wise man said." The sound came again, like a pride of starving lions roaring in unison. "It could be some tiny creature," Sarah told herself. "Perfectly harmless, just that it happens to have a very loud roar." After all, by far the loudest person at home was Toby, and he couldn't do you any harm. Was it some law she had never grasped? Something to do with the smallest creatures making the loudest noise? Did dinosaurs roar? She decided not. They would have made a low growling noise, but what about ants then? Probably they made a terrible noise somewhere beyond the range of human hearing. And she was not going to run away. The only alternative was to proceed in the direction they had been going, with some shred of faith that forward meant onward. And so, crossing her fingers for luck, she moved tentatively along the hedge alley. When she reached the gap in the hedge and peered cautiously through it, she saw that things were, indeed, not always what they seemed. The roar was coming from a terrifyingly huge beast, but the animal was upside down, suspended by one leg lashed to a tree. It was roaring with pain because 4 goblins were tormenting it with nipper sticks. Long poles with small, fierce creatures on the end of them that bit like piranhas whenever they were given the chance. The great beast, who was covered with shaggy ginger hair, flailed out haplessly at the goblins, but the only result was that its body swung to and fro. That improved the game for the goblins, giving each of them an opportunity to dart in ahead of the others and get in a cruel thrust with the nipper sticks before the bellowing, frantically slaughtering beast had completed its swing. They were clearly having the time of their lives. They vied with each other in how soft a part of the beast's body within how soft a part of the beast's bodies they could reach, and how long they could hold the nipper's teeth there before they had to jump out of the way of its desperate arms. So absorbed they were that Sarah was able to leave the hedge and come on closer without any risk of their noticing her. She was appalled by the scene. "Those little beasts," she muttered to herself. She looked around for a weapon and found some small rocks. She picked one up, took careful aim, and threw it at the nearest goblin. It hit him on the head, knocking the visor of his helmet down over his eyes. "Hey!" the goblin exclaimed. "Who turned out the lights?" He lurched around sightlessly, still swinging and thrusting out his nipper stick. The vicious creature on the end of the stick was glad to bite anything within its reach. When it made contact with another goblin, its teeth sank in. "Ouch! Ouch!" the bitten goblin shrieked. "Hey, stop that, would you?" "Stopped what?" said the first goblin, still prodding on unseeingly. The second goblin was now under furious assault. "Ah! Dogweed! Rat's meal!" Spitefully, he retaliated by deliberately using his nipper stick. It was the blinded goblin's turn to wail. "Help! Who's attacking me? Where are the lights?" The other two goblins had paused in their tormenting of the beast. This is even better fun. They nudged each other and snickered as they watched the fight. "Go for it!" one of them shouted. "Get him!" the other said. The other yelled, hopping up and down in his excitement. Sarah had armed herself with another little rock, and now she threw it. She was astonished at how accurate her aim was today. The rock hit one of the other goblins on the helmet, knocking down his visor. He staggered into his companion, and that one's visor slammed down too, with the impact. "Help!" cried one. "It's gone dark!" squealed the other. "What happened?" "Lights! Where are the lights?" Meanwhile, the first goblin, still visored and unable to see who was nipping him, decided that his only recourse was to take to his heels. Running blind, he crunched straight into the other two, who were both staggering now. His nipper stick seized its opportunity. Sarah watched with tears of laughter in her eyes as three goblins dueled with each other, helmets over their faces, while the fourth went on cursing his wounds. "Ouch! I'm being nipped! Help! Lights! Ow! Stop it! Worm rot! Teasel rash!" The uproar faded as the pack of them pursued each other, yelling and yelping, crashing into hedges and falling over roots. Sarah wiped her eyes, and her face became serious as she gazed at the great dangling beast. Having delivered it from its tormentors, she had half a mind to leave well enough alone and steal away, but the pity she had felt for the monster was still working in her. She approached it cautiously. What the shaggy brute saw was another tormentor coming. It let out a terrible roar and aimed a great blow at her. She was careful to remain just out of reach. All the same, even to stand there and face the gigantic, inverted creature took some more courage than she thought she had. She remembered having read somewhere, "You have to speak firmly with confidence to wild animals." So her most perfect schoolteacher voice, she told it, "Now stop that!" Another great roar was on its way from the depths of the monster's body, but the beast stopped in mid-roar when it heard itself thus addressed. "Meh?" it said. Sarah clicked her tongue. "Is that any way to treat someone who's trying to help you?" The monster still had its doubts. It tried delivering another bellow and aimed a swipe, but there was not much conviction in it. "Stop it, do you hear?" Sarah was beginning to enjoy herself. It was a role she played well, having had plenty of time to study those who played it every day in the classroom. It was one of the parts she had liked to perform for her mother's amusement. The monster answered, "Huh? Now, do you or do you not want me to help you get down from that tree?" The monster hung there for a bit, reflecting on what its options were. It craned its neck to look up at its tethered ankle, reflected again, and then turned to face Sarah. "Ludo, down," it said. Its voice had become almost deferential. Its face was still fearsome, though ox-like horns on its head, sunken eyes, an enormous jaw with the fangs protruding on each end, and a broad gaping mouth that looked grim. Sarah steeled herself to approach closely. She felt its warm breath on her face as she stood beside the beast and twisted herself down from the waist to get a look at it the right way up. What she saw surprised her. The great mouth that had looked so grim, with its turned down corners, had actually been, of course, smiling sweetly at her. Gosh, she reflected. It must often be like that for poor Toby, when people lean over him from the pillow of his crib. Not only was the monster grinning at her, it now blinked in a goofy sort of way, which could just mean, "I'm in a pickle, aren't I? But all the same, how do you do, and thanks for being so nice to me." Sarah returned a cautious smile. She was not going to credit this monster with being uniquely in this place, what it seemed to be. Ludo, down, it repeated. Ludo, she asked, is that your name? Ludo, friend. Uh-huh. I've had people say that to me before, so I'm not taking anything for granted, but... She shook her head and, more to herself than to Ludo, concluded, your eyes are just like Merlin's. Feeling safer now, she ruffled Ludo's ginger head between the horns. He smiled and sighed. She straightened up and looked at the knot tethering Ludo's leg to the branch. It was a simple bone line, which she could release with one tug. With her hand raised, she paused and looked at Ludo. I do hope you're not going to turn back into a raging monster the moment I let you down from here. Ludo's response was another roar that made the rocks tremble. Sarah leaped back. Sarah leapt back. I knew it. I couldn't trust anyone in this place. But then she saw that Ludo, far from aiming a blow at her, was using his paws to rub one or two of the most tender places where the goblins had bitten him with their nipper sticks. Ludo, hurt, he moaned. Sarah looked more closely at him. He was covered with little bleeding wounds under his fur. Oh, she cried. You poor thing! She quickly reached up and tugged at the rope and released him. He hit the ground with a mighty thump. With deep little groans, he sat himself up and began to rub his wounded head and the sores inflicted upon him. She watched him, even now uncertain whether she should expect him to thank her or eat her. Goblins, mean to Ludo, he grimaced. Oh, I know that, she nodded, with more assurance than she felt. They were terribly mean to you, she told Ludo. She moved closer to him and patted his arms. But it's all right now. He sniffled, still rubbing. Then his face broke into the most endearing, big dumb smile she had ever seen, bigger and dumber even than any in the cartoons. Friend, Ludo declared. That's right, Ludo. I'm Sarah. Sarah, friend. Yes, I am. She couldn't smile big and dumb like that, but she gave him the best that she could. And, she added, I want to ask a favor of you, Ludo. Huh? I have to get to the castle at the center of the labyrinth. Do you know the way there? Ludo shook his great big head, still beaming at her. Sarah sighed and her shoulders sagged. You don't know the way either? Again he shook his head with a small frown of apology. Sarah rested her chin in her hand, philosophically. He was a dear monster, and likely to prove much more trustworthy than that runty, cowardly pipsqueak, but she could have done with a guide. Well, if no one was going to help her, she would have to find out what she could do on her own. She stood up. Ludo stood with her, massively towering over her. He may be no guide, she thought, but it's nice to have him on my side. Hi, Kakra, how are you doing today? I'm doing well. I am reading the Labyrinth. We're continuing with the story Labyrinth. Novelization of Labyrinth. The internet lords have shown their mercy upon me. Yes, they have. Now. Earlier I was playing a game with Cal and it wasn't so merciful. I beat you to the punch. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. I'm doing fine. But yes, I hope you're enjoying the story. Having a sip of tea. Delicious. Chapter 9. Another door opens. Sarah walked past the hanging tree. Ludo, wincing with the soreness of his nipped body, followed. Behind the tree, two high doorways had appeared, set into a stone wall that seemed to be a part of a rough forest hedge. On each door was an iron knocker. Wow, look at these, she remarked, glad to have a companion again. It was more fun than talking to herself. They approached the doorways and looked more closely at the knockers. Each had the form of a repulsive face with a ring set in it. The knocker to her left had the ring coming out of his ears. The one on the right held the ring in its mouth. No, the pudding moves. Like, when I move, the pudding moves. Isn't it cute? It's the cutest little thing. See? Sometimes it moves too much, it loses the cherry. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. But yes, the pudding moves. Let's see. She looked from one to the other. Which to choose? She always found choices hard to make. If there were 2 kinds of cake at a birthday party, she would contrive to have a bit of each, at a decent interval, naturally, and hoping that no one noticed. Now she looked around the glade to see if there was some other way to pass this wall. There wasn't, and so she examined the knockers. "Well, Ludo," she asked, "which one of these 2 ugly characters shall we choose?" "It's very rude to stare," said the first knocker, the one with the ring in its ears. Sarah jumped, still not accustomed to the habit that normally inarticulate things had, in the Labyrinth, of speaking their minds. "I'm sorry," she said, though she felt she was scarcely to blame for assuming the door knocker would have no mind to speak, let alone blunt opinions on acceptable social behavior. See, I was just wondering which door to choose, that's all. "What?" the first knocker asked. Sarah was about to reply where she came from to say, "What?" was thought just as rude as staring. Before she could open her mouth, she heard a mumbling noise from behind her. It was the second knocker with the ring in its mouth. It said something like, "Don't talk with your mouth full," the first knocker said primly. Sarah addressed the second knocker. "I don't understand what you're saying." Then she realized what the problem was. "Ah, wait a moment." "What was that?" the first knocker inquired. Sarah took hold of the ring in the second knocker's mouth and pulled. It came away easily. The face looked tremendously relieved. It exercised the muscles around its jaw and chin with evident pleasure. "It's so good to get that thing out," it sighed. "What were you saying?" Sarah asked. The first knocker behind her said, "Huh?" The second knocker nodded at the first. "I said it's no good talking to him." "Oh dear me, no. He's deaf as a post, that one, I could tell you." The first knocker said, "Mumble, mumble, mumble, that's you. You're a wonderful conversational companion, I must say." "You should talk," the second knocker yelled back. "All you do is moan." "It's no good," the first knocker said in a matter-of-fact voice. "I can't hear you." Sarah looked at the second knocker. Where do these doors lead?" she asked it. "What?" said the first knocker. "Search me," the second one answered her. "We're just the knockers." "Oh," Sarah said, reflecting that she ought to have known better than to expect a simple answer. "Hi, Captain Spaceboy. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome, welcome. I hope you're enjoying the story, friend. I hope you're doing well today. I hope you're doing well." Let's see. Well, she had to try either one door or the other. She chose the second one. Having engaged in discourse with it, however slightly, she felt it would somehow have been discourteous to turn her back and choose its neighbor. On the other hand, it could be that the knockers would prefer their doors not to be open. She shouldn't take it for granted that the knockers would like people to make use of them. Every either had its or. If she weighed the implications of every alternative, would she ever get to make a choice at all? Well, when one door opens, so does another. She had commit herself to the second door by now. With her hand against it, she went ahead and pushed. It didn't budge. She pushed harder. She leaned her shoulder against the door. It was as solid as the wall it was set in. She thought of asking Ludo to help her. His gigantic bulk would surely open the door. But she wasn't sure it was the right door to choose, and so instead, she asked another question. "How do we get through?" "Huh?" said the first knocker. The second one, with an arch smile, replied, "Knock and the door will open." Ah! She looked at the ring she held and went to put it back in the second knocker's mouth. He made a face. I don't want that thing back in my mouth. And he clamped his lips tightly shut. and refused to open them even when she put the ring against his mouth. "Oh, come on," she said encouragingly. "I want to knock." He shook his head stubbornly. Commenced the first knocker, morosely as usual. "Doesn't want the ring back in his mouth. Can't say I blame him." "Then," said Sarah, putting down the ring, "I'm afraid I'll have to bother you instead." She walked over to the first knocker and took hold of its ring. "Ow! Ow!" the first knocker protested. Sarah took no notice. She knocked twice upon the heavy door. It swung open. Cautiously, she put her head through the doorway to see what was beyond. She heard giggles, sputtering of supposed laughter, honks and hoots. Instinctively, she started to grin herself, and went further through the doorway. She turned, waiting for Ludo to follow her. He remained in the doorway, shaking his head. "Come on, Ludo!" He shook his head again. Well, she thought, it can't do any harm to see where this might lead. She would come back for Ludo if she spotted the castle. She was in a sunlit forest with clumps and banks of flowers, daisy-decked hillocks, dingles and dells, shady trees all around. The laughter was infectious. Giggling, she looked hard for the creatures who were Excuse me, I need a sip of tea. Giggling, she looked hard for the creatures who were enjoying all this merriment. All she could see was the forest plants. "Who is it?" she called out, chuckling. From right behind her came a laughing snort. She spun around and saw a tree's branch moving to cover a hollow in his tree trunk that might just been his mouth. "It was the tree," she declared. "Tree, wasn't it you?" That sparked off a tinkle of giggles at her feet. She looked down and saw a cluster of bluebells shivering and shaking together with amusement. "Oh, look!" she exclaimed, falling to her knees and giggling with them. They were beside themselves with hilarity now. The tree above her could hold it no longer. It exploded in a bellow of mirth. Sarah threw her head back and joined in. It was the signal for a general outburst. The tree stump nearby was laughing in a deep, cracked voice. Birds on a branch were hopping and cackling. Another tree was rocking. Ferns waved about. Squirrels and mice peeped from their holes with tears in their eyes. Sarah was helpless with laughing. Catching a breath, she panted, "What are we laughing at?" "I don't know," the tree above her roared. "Ha ha 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 ha!" The whole forest shook. Even the grass on the ground was trembling. Sarah was feeling faint. She sat down. "Oh, please, I must stop," she clutched at her sides. In response, the laughter around her redoubled. It reached a pitch of hysterical shrillness. "I've never laughed so much in my life," Sarah gasped, flat on her back. Birds convulsed with mirth fell out of the trees and hit the ground head first. She saw their eyes were mad, with pinprick pupils. Other creatures came screaming from under the roots of the trees. As they approached her, she managed to sit up, alarmed by their sinister, gaping mouths and crazy eyes. Still laughing, she moaned, "Oh, please, I must stop." "She can't stop," the tree howled, and the whole forest screeched in reply. She got to her feet. Her body and mouth were shaking uncontrollably, but her eyes were haggard. "Stop," she whispered. "Stop." She staggered back towards the open doorway and collapsed. Shrieking hysteria applauded that. She raised her head. She could see Ludo just outside the door and held up her hand for help. He looked very uneasy and wouldn't come inside the door, but he held his arm out towards her and nodded his great head in encouragement. Her eyes fixed on him. She dragged herself across the last few yards until he could bend down, pick her up and take her outside, and shut the door. The laughter stopped dead. The breeze in the leaves of the maze outside was the sweetest sound she had ever heard. It took her some time to recover. Ludo watched over her anxiously. When she stood up, sniffed, and gave him a small smile, he said, "Ludo, glad." "Sarah, glad," she answered and ruffled his head. There was nothing for it but to try out the other door. She walked across to it, picking up the ring. "I'm sorry," she said, and pushed the ring against the knocker's lips. He pursed his mouth and resisted her. "Oh, come on," she said, and tried again. The knocker frowned and squeezed his lips together even more tightly. Then she... Ah! Excuse me, I gotta take that. Sorry about that. That was my phone. That was my phone. I don't know why I have a land. Creator insisted on putting a landline into my room. I don't know why. It's kind of annoying. He's like, oh well, you know, if we get some important calls and I'm all the way down in the sub-basement, I can't hear it, so I need you to pick them up for me. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So instead of having Lemmy you know, alert me anytime there's a phone call, he just said, here, put this phone in your room. And I was like, no. Home phones still exist? Yes, landlines still exist. Took me back to the FNAF times. Yeah, it can be a little triggering. It's a little triggering. I'm sorry if that scared you guys. It scares me too sometimes. I'm not used to it. I am very much someone that likes to stay in my own little quiet. So anytime the phone goes off, it freaks me the heck out. I know, Creator's so old school. I'm like, why don't you just use your cell phone? But then again, he still has like one of those really old cell phones. Those old style cell phones. Not the flip phones, but like the ones that look like bricks. But I told him, get a smartphone. And he has a smartphone. He has like a really, really old smartphone. But he's just like, why do I need that when I just use it to make calls? And I'm like, really? Nokia type phones? Yeah. Nokia still makes phones. My current cell phone is a Nokia. But it's a Nokia smartphone. I told him, get a smartphone. He's like, why would I get a smartphone that just breaks so easily? I was like, that's not the point. That's not the point. Get a smartphone. Be up with the times. For a not so old guy, he's really old. Play Snake on it? I can totally play Snake on my phone. I love that game, Snake. It's fun. Alright, let's get back into it. Where was I? I forgot where I was! Hold on. Where was I? Oh, here we go. There was nothing for it but to try the other door. She walked across it, picking up the ring. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Oh. Let me get some tea. It's allergy season where I am right now. So my sniffling and coughing has reared its ugly head despite taking allergy medicine. I have very bad seasonal allergies. I'm allergic to all tree and plant pollen. I'm allergic to all tree and plant pollen, so springtime is the worst kind of hell for me. So, oh, come on, she said and tried again. The knocker frowned and squeezed his lips together even more tightly. Then she had an idea. With her finger and her thumb, she squeezed the knocker's nose. He held out for quite a while, scowling more and more fiercely, but in the end he had to open his mouth for a breath. Damn, he gasped. In a flash, he had the ring back in his mouth and knocked on the door. He was protesting. Sorry, said Sarah. I had to do it. That's all right, the first knocker told her. He's used to it. The door swung open to reveal a forbidding forest. On this side of the wall, they were in sunshine, but through the doorway was a dismal and brooding prospect. Ludo was growling and trying to draw back, but Sarah was not going in without him this time. "Come on," she said, and braced herself. "There's no other way we can go, except back to where we came from, and I'm not doing that." She stepped through the doorway and waited for Ludo to join her. He followed her reluctantly. The door swung shut of its own accord, with a resounding thud. The echo lasted a long time. Sarah shivered. The sky was the color of cast iron, and the forest plants looked shriveled, as though the sun had never shone on them since the first day on Earth. She felt terribly dispirited after a minute in this place, and she looked for Ludo to hearten her. His expression was unhappier than her own. Come on, Ludo," she said, trying to sound cheerful. "Fancy a great thing like you being so scared." Ludo shook his head. "Not good." She shrugged it with a heavy heart, turned around again, and wondered which way to go. A path ran in front of her into the forest, but how could anyone take it for granted that a path was the way you wanted to go? "I don't know which way the castle is," she said. Again she looked at Ludo, hoping that from his height he would be able to see it, but he had his head sunk resolutely onto his chest, and took no notice. She tried standing on tiptoe. That was no good. Nothing was any good. She felt a tear of despair rim her eyes, and brushed it away irritably. "There's nothing to be scared of," she said, and felt she had to take some initiative, if only to persuade Ludo to buck up. She peered up into the branches of a tree. What she did not see, behind her, was the earth opened up beneath Ludo and swallowed him into a great hole. He had no time to utter more than the first tremor of a roar before the earth closed up again above his head. "Maybe I could climb up there," Sarah was saying. "Then I must be able to see the way to the castle." She took hold of the lower branch and put her weight on it. It snapped off in her hand with a dry crack like china. Before she could register that it was dead, the whole tree collapsed. Lying before her, she saw a pile of not dead wood, but bones. The thing she was holding was a bone. With a shudder, she threw it away. There was a dry, rustling noise going on all around her, and in dismay she saw the whole forest was collapsing like a series of dinosaur skeletons. One bone tree after the other clattered to the ground, each bringing down the next, like dominoes, until the entire landscape had been reduced to heaps of bone, all jumbled together. And Sarah knew it was all her fault, the destruction of this delicate balance. She had snapped off the branch. It was too much to bear. She burst out weeping and sank to the ground. She couldn't do anything right. It was all hopeless. Quite hopeless. She cried and cried with her hand over her face. Eventually she looked to see if Ludo was crying too. "Ludo?" She looked around. She looked all around her. He wasn't there. Distractedly, she inspected the bone on the ground to see if any had ginger fur on them. "Ludo!" She rushed towards the spot where the two of them had been, looking in a panic for any sign of him. She saw none. Above, the sky had grown even darker and more miserable. "Ludo!" she screamed, feeling utterly alone in this desolate bonescape. "Where are you? What's going on?" "Oh, I'm sorry, Kakara. I didn't see your message. Funny thing, I tried to look for the tablet camera thingy. Tablet camera thingy? What tablet camera thingy? What tablet camera thingy? What you talking about, friend? What you talking about? But, I'm gonna keep it around in the chat, I promise. I'll keep it better around in the chat. I'm sorry. Let's see. Let's see. Where, I was saying, okay, there's a model on the table. Oh! It does that sometimes. It happens whenever I move out of range of the camera. Sometimes that happens. Chill? I have no chill. I am not a chill person. I am a consistently anxious person. I have very little chill. I take anti-anxiety medications. I ran out. I am going to the doctor tomorrow for more. So, you know. I am a perpetually anxious person. So, yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna get back to the story. Okay, I'm gonna get back to the story. What was I saying? Right. She ran to get away anywhere. If she stayed, then she would be bones herself. She ran through the heaps of bone into another part of the forest, also grim. Huge gnarl roots stretched across the path. The trees had trunks like tight fists. Fallen branches and dead leaves covered the earth. Here and there, a brief vista between the trees offered a way on, but along each one that she took, cobwebs clothed her face. From clumps of fern, clouds of dark moths flitted up at her. "What's going on?" she whimpered as she ran. The forest got darker as she ran deeper into it. She stumbled into a glade above which the trees were so close that she could not see her feet in the darkness. Still she ran until a terrifying, bright, savage figure leaped out in front of her. "Yeah!" it screeched. "What's going on?" Sarah's mouth and eyes formed circles. She screamed. Chapter 10. No problem. Excuse me. Hoggle was hoggling around the hedge mage still, minding his own business. And most of all, minding that the girl had gotten his jewels. He tried to please both her and Jareth. That's what you get for trying to please everyone. No baubles. When Sarah screamed, he heard her. It stopped him in his tracks, which were heading for the start of the labyrinth. He listened, heard a second scream, wrestled with his rudimentary conscience, and came to a decision, and began to run in her direction. He knew his way around this place better than any stupid goblin in the castle. "I'm coming, Missy!" he shouted. He galloped around the corner straight into a pair of knees. Jareth was wearing his cloak and looking quite handsomely fiendish. "Well," he said pleasantly, "if it isn't you..." "It isn't me," Hoggle told him, trembling. "And where are you going, Ah!" Hoggle was staring at Jareth's boots. "Ah," he said in a different tone of voice to hold his audience's attention. Then he spent a little while scratching his backside, suggesting that a person can't be expected to answer a question while he's plagued with an itch. Jareth was content to wait, with a smile on his lips. At last Hoggle came up with it. "The little Missy, she gave me the slip, but I hear her just now." Jareth's eyes narrowed. "So I'm going to fetch her and then lead her straight back to the beginning, just like you told me." He wished the king of the goblins would kick him, or pelt him with slugs, or do anything but smile that nerve-wracking, pleasant smile. "I see," Jareth nodded. "I thought for a moment you were running to help her. But no, you wouldn't. Not after my warning. That would be stupid." Hoggle agreed, with a trembling heart. "Oh, stupid? You bet it would be stupid. Me help her after your warnings?" Jareth elegantly inclined his head to examine Hoggle's belt. "Oh dear," he said, seemingly concerned. "Poor Hoghead." Hoggle growled. "I just noticed your lovely jewels are missing." "Oh." Hoggle looked down at his sadly unadorned belt. "Oh yes, so they are. My lovely jewels missing. There now. Better find them, huh? But first," he promised in a profoundly reliable voice, "I'm off to fetch the little Missy back to the beginning of the labyrinth." He thought of trying to wink, but he decided not to. "Just like we planned," he said, and started to march obediently away. "Wait," Jareth told him. Hoggle froze, his eyes closed. "I have a better plan, Hoggle. Give her this." With a wave of his left hand, Jareth produced a bubble from the air. In his hand it became a crystal ball. He waited for Hoggle to turn around and tossed it to him. Hoggle caught it. It had become a peach. Hoggle looked at it dumbfounded. What is it?" "A present." Hoggle's eyebrows beetled. It ain't gonna hurt the little Missy, is it?" he asked slowly. "Oh?" Jareth placed his hand over his heart. Now, why the concern? Hoggle pursed his lips. Just curious. Give it to her, Hoggle. That's all you have to do, and all you have to know. Hoggle was torn between fearful obedience, which was familiar to him, and affection, to which he could not have put a name. He stood more erect. I won't do nothing to harm her. He reckoned that such a moment of defiance might have earned him a pint of earwigs down his breeches at least. Instead, Jareth replied with that pleasant smile that by now was like broken glass on Hoggle's nerves. Come, Hogbrain, the Goblin King laughed teasingly. I'm surprised at you, losing your ugly head over a girl. I ain't lost my head, Hoggle scowled. You don't imagine that a young girl could ever like a repulsive little scab like you, do you? Hoggle was stunned. She said we was... He stopped himself in mid-blurt, but it was too late. Jareth gave him a coy, sideways grin. What? Bosom companions? Was that it, Piggy? Piggly Wiggly? Friends, are you? Hoggle, red-faced, was blinking at his boots again. Don't matter, he murmured. Jareth's voice came back crisply. You give her that, Hoggle, or I'll have to tip you straight into the bog of eternal stench before you can blink. In miserable obedience, Hoggle nodded. Yes. He had started to hurry on his way, assuming the interview was over, when he heard Jareth's voice again. He stopped rigid, not daring to turn around. I'll tell you what, Jareth had his head back and was looking down his nose at Hoggle. If she ever kisses you, I'll turn you into a prince. Hoggle knew there was going to be a catch. You will. There was the catch. Prince of the Land of Stench. Jareth thought that was a capital joke. He was still laughing as he disappeared. Hoggle remained standing still, staring at the peach in his hand. His face registered several emotions at once. Amusement was not among them. A bright, savage figure that had leaped out in front of Sarah was a fiery, and the fieries are wild. Are they ever? They are wild about how wild they are. She screamed a second time and shrank away from the creature, hands folded across herself. It was a bit like a scrawny fox, with a long snout and that opened very wide, and a bushy tail. Its fur was red-pink purplish. It walked, or rather bounded, on two chicken-like legs. Its staring eyes were blue, with red pupils, and had very long fingers which seemed to be perpetually drumming. What's happening? It demanded. She shook her head and opened her mouth to frame some sort of answer, while all that came out was a sob. Now cut that out right now, you hear? The fiery told her. Yeah, agreed another one from behind her, making her start around in a fright. That ain't gonna do no good. No, sir, hollered a third one, prancing from the tree and leering wildly at her. No, sir, a fourth one appeared, and a fifth. Hey, it said to her rousingly. Come on now. She looked around at them all in great alarm. What do you want? Wahoo! One replied, rapping out a fast rhythm with his fingers on a rock. Hoot! Said another, setting up a cross rhythm. What, us? Asked the third. Sarah nodded. Why, we're just after having ourselves a good time. Oh, Sarah said, confused. I see. They all slapped their sides at her demure reply and laughed maniacally. One let out a whoop and hit his hand on a log. She sees, it howls. Yeah! Hey! You can't stick around like that, one told her. No, said another. What, did it lag? Did I lag? Oh no. It happens. It happens. No, said another. You gotta shake it loose a bit. Yeah, quit crying. Let it all hang out. They leaped around, hooting and clapping. One struck his finger on the ground and ignited it, like a match. He used it to light a bonfire, then blew his finger out nonchalantly. Bit of stream buffering? Oh no. Hold on, let me see. that buffering? A little bit? Okay, so it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Let me see where they leaped around. Wait, yes. Stair was still timidly backing away. Oh yeah, what you need is a little mess around. Yes, sir. The fiery jumped out over a pair of tree stumps and started using them as drums. The rest broke out in an up-tempo dance number, clicking and drumming their fingers as they circled around her. Sarah watched in astonishment, standing near the bonfire. She couldn't have fled if she wanted to, with them capering all around her. But in any case, she was rooted to the spot by their antics. She was horrified to see one of the fieries pluck out his eyes and shake them like dice and throw them. Yeah! The others all cheered, crowding around to look at them. Snake eyes! Then the owner of the eyes snatched them up, tossed them in the air like peanuts, and caught them in his eye sockets. The rest were hooting and dancing and clapping. As though to outdo the first, another fiery took his head off his shoulders and threw it in the air. It was kicked and headed around like a soccer ball. Another took off his leg. With a delicate chip shot, hit the head back onto the body. They all cackled and slapped their thighs. The drummer went wild. Meanwhile, the rest crowded around Sarah and tried to persuade her to join in the dance. After seeing their wild pastimes, she was shy and nervous of them, but she thought she had their number now. Just crazy good timers out of their skulls, and she was no longer frightened. Not even one tried to lift her head from her shoulders. Hey, she protested. Ouch! It doesn't come off, the fiery exclaimed. What? The rest were astonished, and they all gathered around in their attempt to decapitate her. Ow! She said more sternly. Stop it! You're right, it's fixed on! Of course it's fixed on, she told them. Where are you going with a head like that, lady? Well, the hopelessness of her predicament flooded back as she started to sob again. She was missing Ludo terribly, and Hoggle too. Hey now, what's up, little lady? Sarah hiccuped. Oh, I'm trying to get to Jareth's castle at the center of the labyrinth. Holy mo! You sure you know what you're doing, lady? Yes, said Sarah firmly. Well, hot dog, how about that? The drummer shouted, She knows what she's doing! And he gave her a drum roll on the tree stumps. Yeah, the others said, grinning and popping. But I've only got a few hours left, Sarah told them. She wondered how few. The fieries whistled and grinned at each other. Well, that ain't no problem. Sarah looked up at them through her tears, with a glint of hope in her eyes. It isn't? Why, shoot, no. We'll take you there. Yeah, another squawked wildly, waving his fingers above his head. How about coming along a little, hey? The rest cavorted in a frenzy of excitement, hooting and screeching. A castle! Oh, wow! Well, Sarah said doubtfully, it's kind of you, but you think we're just too wild? The fiery's head rose up from his shoulders as he spoke. He had to grab it in his hands and press it back into place. The drummer did a big roll. Why, shoot, we ain't that wild. Oh, yes, we are, called another. Hey! He formed himself into the shape of an ostrich, ran 2 steps, and exploded. As he put his pieces together again, the rest howled and clapped. Excuse me, let me get some tea. My tea got cold. Cool, man. Now look, little lady, you can't just go walking through this place on your own, son. Sarah sniffed sadly. Well, I did have a friend just... Hey, fellow with the clothes on, right? Hoggle? That Hoggle, yeah! Oh, wow! Everyone in these parts knows Hoggle. Really? Sarah asked. Sure, Hog and me, we're just like that. The fiery crossed his fingers. Oh, well... Before she could say any more, Sarah felt herself being propelled along by the fieries. All she could see ahead of them was a rocky wilderness. Now the castle's just along around this way. one assured her. Are you sure you know how to get to the center of the labyrinth? She asked nervously. She had precious little time to waste, and she thought she would have preferred to be left to find her own way. But there was no escaping the Fireys, who had hold of her clothes in their long fingers and were hopping enthusiastically along with her in tow. Do we know how to get to the center of the labyrinth? They all burst out laughing. Their heads flew up in the air, and their arms had to detach themselves to catch their heads. Why, lady, one screeched, we may be wild, but we know where we're going. Yeah, the rest concurred. You want to go to the castle? We're taking you to the castle. Ain't we just doing that? Yeah. So come along with us, little lady, and you ain't gonna have no problem. Jareth was watching Sarah from the castle. In his crystal, he saw her distraught face looking around for a way to escape. He held Toby up in front of his sister's picture. Look, Sarah, he murmured. Is this what you're trying to find? Toby gaped at Sarah's face in the crystal. He held a hand out to touch it. Jareth chuckled to himself and put his arms around Toby. So much trouble for such a little thing, Jareth said, shaking his head. He looked at Toby's puzzled face. But not for long. Soon she'll forget all about you, my fine fellow. Just as soon as Hoggle gives her my present. She'll forget everything. Chapter 11. Windows in the Wilderness. The Fireys were hauling Sarah along as though she were a reluctant donkey. She certainly was reluctant. She could not see the castle anywhere, and when she asked them how far away it was, they answered with whoops and cackles. The clock was ticking towards 13 all the time, so perhaps she was indeed a donkey for having gotten herself into this mess. She tried to figure out where she should have made a different choice. It was impossible. Suppose she had not approached Hoggle right at the start, but walked the other way around the Great Wall. Might she not, by now, be back home, with Toby safe in his crib? Perhaps. How would she know? What evidence had she been given that any of her choices were the right ones? If they were the right ones. If it wasn't all a cruel hoax by which Jareth tormented her with the illusion that Toby could be rescued. She blinked back rising tears. She would not start this again. If she hadn't been a crybaby, perhaps these creatures she was with now would have left her alone. She concentrated on what could be evidence, however flimsy, that she had gotten some things right. Her brief friendship with Ludo. Poor Ludo. That couldn't be meaningless, could it? The happy, goofy smile he'd given her when she had rescued him. That was a gratuitous event in the story with no ending. Even Hoggle, flawed character though he was, had unwittingly helped her to find out that she was capable of doing more than she had known. Excuse me. To have gotten this far, in spite of the hideous traps Jareth had set for her, surely there was some kind of evidence in her favor. Perhaps, but it would mean nothing at all unless she could get to Toby in time, and save him from being turned into a goblin. She had to get away from this bunch, who were just passing the time. Her time. Hey, ain't that it over there? One yelled. No, said another. That's just a rock. How about that? That a castle? Oh no, that's just a stump from an old tree. Well, shrieked another one of them, how about that? That's got to be a castle. He was pointing at a pond. No how, the wiser one said. A castle's got windows and all that. An eel popped his head above the surface of the pond and looked at them. The effect was as though they'd struck oil. It is a castle. Doggone, conceded the wiser one. But what do you know? We must be there. Yeah! Hey! Wowee! Sarah looked coolly at the whoopings and leapings. That's not a castle, she told them. It's got windows. That old eel must have looked out of something. Well, Sarah answered, it's not the castle I have to find. Please let me go now. Now you, the eel piped, what are you doing? Oh, now you, the eel piped, what are you doing? We're just having ourselves a good old time. They were capering about, slapping their thighs. Hey, eel, you a castle? No, I ain't, the eel trilled tartly. Now get along. Hey, eels, So why you got windows? So I can tell you to scat, the eel replied, and vanished with a plop. With a plum and a plop. Hot dog! They were uncontrollably delighted with everything that happened. Setbacks or successes, it made no difference. Please, said Sarah. I want to go. Ain't you having a good time? Yes, she lied politely, but I must get to the castle. We nearly found it for you. It did have windows. Well, one anyway. Oh, it did have windows. Well, one anyway. We want to help you. Yeah, 'cause we like you. Sarah sighed. But you've got no more idea of where the castle is than I have. We have too. No, you haven't. It's just over this hill here. Yeah, you tell her. Come on, what are we waiting for? Bopping and raving, they dragged Sarah on through the wilderness and on, until even they began to look exhausted and a little downcast. As for Sarah, her body was wilting and her spirit was exasperated. These castles are sure hard to find. Maybe it's a small one, another suggested. Uh-huh, good thinking. Whereupon they all started to pick up little stones and peer beneath them. No, Sarah told them wearily. Castles are big things. Maybe it's over the hill, one said to another. Just have a look-see. If you could spot a castle from up there, he pointed to a fir tree. Sure thing, said the other. He took off his head and ran, bouncing it. When he arrived at the tree, he tossed his head neatly onto the topmost branches. Can you see the castle? Yeah, the clever one the cleviated head answered. I can see the castle. What does it look like? All these voices run together. Oh my gosh. What does it look like? Sarah asked suspiciously. Well, it kind of looks like a hippopotamus. Wow, that's some castle. We're as good as there. Come on. Wait for me, called out the head, while his body scrambled to reach him. I'm going back, Sarah announced. Lady, you heard him say that he sees a castle. A big one, like a hippopotamus. They were whooping and jiggling around so frantically that she thought he might be able to slip away from them without being noticed. She walked slowly, letting them all get on ahead of her. Then she turned and quietly walked back to the direction from which they came. Of course, they were at her side again in an instant. And they all toiled on through the wilderness together. Sarah was aiming to get back to where they had started, but then she realized the futility of that, since they would have no idea where to go next. She wondered what was the point of doing anything. She might as well go this way or that, or stand still or cry. Maybe just having yourself a good time was the best anyone could hope for. She shook her head and halted. Whatever the point was, all this was beside it. She could do nothing until she had gotten rid of herself of the fireys. As they jiggled happily about her, she looked around the wilderness for an idea. Any idea. She noticed the distance, and to one side of them, a wooded bluff. She knew what she had to do. She turned around and addressed the fireys. Wait a minute, none of you know where the castle is. You don't even know what a castle looks like. Just because we're wild doesn't mean we don't know what a castle is. We ain't stupid, we're just wild. Yeah, wild, they all agreed enthusiastically. She waited. As she anticipated, one of them showed how wild he was by picking up his head and tossing it into the air. As it came down, Sarah grabbed it and threw it as far away as she could. Hey, that's his head, lady! 2 more heads leaped up to see where the first one had gone. Sarah grabbed them too and hurled them in different directions. That's my... Let's see. Hey! That's my head! One of the heads protested as he flew through the air. Pandemonium broke out. Hey, wait a minute! Lady, what are you doing? You threw their heads! Yeah, you're only allowed to throw your own head, right? While Trunks were perusing heads, getting the wrong ones and chucking them around, Sarah bolted. She made for the bluff. Stop her, someone! We gotta take your head off now! Yeah, we got to throw your head around! You can't quit now! I'll take off her head. Hey, little lady. Hey there, come back. We gotta help you. Come on, everybody. They gave chase and grinned on her, but her initial advantage got her to the bluff before they had caught up. Slipping between trees, ahead of her she saw a crevice and a high rock face, and sprinted into it. She found herself in an alleyway, running mazily through the rocks. As she ran on, she heard the fiery voices behind her echoing. She had hoped she'd shaken them off. Hey lady, do you want to take your head off, don't you? She sure does. It's lots of fun. She ran on, oblivious, until the alleyway reached a dead end. Her eyes ran up the rock face, well patterned with mosses and lichens, and saw no hold for climbing. At the top, the wall had been crenellated like the battlements of an old fortress. She heard them come around the last bend behind her. There was no escaping them. There she is! Hey lady, you found another castle! Like a lunchbox! No, like a wheelbarrow! Wow-wee! Wait, lady! Sarah closed her eyes. Something tickled her nose. She opened her eyes and saw a rope. She threw her head back. Leaning over the parapet, high above, was a face. Hoggle's face. Grab it! He called down to her. She grabbed it. Hoggle hauled. The fireys dove at her. They were too late by inches. They leapt up, snatching at her feet. She felt fingers brushing her shoes. Hey, don't you want to look like us? Come on, take off your head. Off with her head. Get a saw. It won't hurt. Hoggle hauled on. Heads began to fly up beside her. Now come on down, lady. Come on, we'll let you play if you take off your arm. How about a leg? An ear. Just take off your ear, lady. You don't need two. One after another, the heads rose beside her, yammering, and fell. We want to help you. Ain't we showing you a good time? Yeah, come down and strut your stuff. Let it all hang out, little lady. Come on, it's fun. Let's look for something else. Hoggle had hauled her to the top. He helped her climb over the battlements and brushed a hand at the flying heads as if they were pestering flies. Shoo, he bade them. Go away. Sarah was looking around, laughing in her relief. They were standing on top of a turret. To either side of them, the stone platform of the great goblin wall ran as far as she could see, rising and falling, turning, crenellating all the way, turreted at regular intervals. She turned to face him. Hoggle, she said warmly. He ignored her, continuing to beat his hands on the last few despondent heads that rose up beyond the battlements. Down, he barked at them. Go on, get away with you. When there were no more heads, he had turned back to face Sarah, who was still beaming at him. The look he returned was as grumpy as ever, but it could not puncture the deep, affectionate gratitude she felt. He kept his eyes lowered, maybe checking his baubles, for which he had strung from her belt. On his own belt hung a pouch, where she carried the peach Jareth gave him. She held out her arms. You came back to help me! Thank you, Hoggle! She caught a hold of him and leaned over towards his face. No! He wailed and tried to brush her off, like one of the flying heads. No, don't kiss me! But she had done it, and the earth moved beneath them. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Because if we read the next chapter, it's going to take a little longer. And I am hungry. It's lunchtime. I had a very early and very light breakfast, so I'm going to go and have some lunch. Plus, I've been receiving a call from one of my lovely neighbors. I think she may need some help. So I will happily help her. She's a lovely elderly neighbor. And I'm going to see if I can help her. If she needs my help, I will go help her. I like helping my neighbors. They're all very lovely people. But yeah, we're going to continue this next week. It is getting good. It is fun. It is so much fun. I'm enjoying this story so much. I hope you guys are too. We don't have too much left over for the book. The novelization is not a super big read. It's like less than 300 pages. So, you know, it's not a big read, but it's a good read. We might be able to finish it next week or the week after, so, you know. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. It's dinner time for you, Kakarot. I hope you enjoy your dinner. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, evening, afternoon, whichever. And I will be seeing you guys, if not tomorrow, Thursday. You're going to see you guys Thursday for the watch along. We're going to have a silly, goofy time. I love you all so very, very, very much. And remember, hug your friends, tell someone you love them, and be a force for good in the world, because goodness knows the world needs more goodness. We love you guys so much, and you guys take good care of yourselves, okay? I'll be seeing y'all. Enjoy your days tomorrow too. Have a wonderful, relaxing, productive, and peaceful day. I'll be seeing you guys. Mwah, 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 mwah.